So let's start creating the basic scene setup. I like to create a plane where we can simulate the ground impact. So we'll use a basic tool like the box, and we can add something like, let's say maybe it is in scale, but we can have no problem about the scaling. So let's think about to do it with a better scaling. This one is 101.5 meters. We can do it maybe let's say 10 meters, and we try to simulate some gun impact on the ground. And on the other side we say that we have 8 meters. Okay, we can do less, 6 meters. Nice. So that's our ground. And now we have to add the impact. The impact will be done using particle flow. So we'll try to generate particles impact over this the ground, and then generating some particles flying away. So to do something like that, we need particle flow. And we go to use mParticles. So we can remove all those nodes, right mouse button, new, and let's go for particle system MassFX. Okay, let's select the source and we can rename it and call PF impact. If we try to see what happened, you see that we have these boxes falling down because we have just a simple basic setup with the dynamic. So we have to change the stuff we have there because I like to have a different way to emit particles. So instead of the bird grid, we'll use a bird stream. So we'll have a stream of particles falling down. If you check, you see that we have those particles launched away by the emitter. Then in this case, we can go to select the bird stream, and you see that we are talking about an object. So if we move it, you see that the particles now are going down from there. Okay. We need more frames, so let's go for 300. And we can have, for example, this object there, and we can animate it. And let's say that in maybe 120 frames, this one will be moved until there at the out. So if we go to simulate, you see that we have particles launched away. Okay, nice. We have to change something, and we have to change first of all the speed. I like to have actually a lower speed. Let's try with maybe 50, and we'll have particles emitted starting from 10, and we'll have the last one emitted by maybe 100. Actually, you see that the rate is really high, so we have 180 particles. Let's go lower, maybe still lower, and let's say maybe 3. Okay, let's see, with 3 we have, you see, just particles going in this way. I like to change a little bit. Let's go for 40, 400. Let's go for maybe 0.8, and let's see if now we have a nice. Okay, you see that we have those particles falling down. Maybe we can just start a little bit before, earlier, maybe just a little bit more. Okay, so you see that we have this point of impact now, and so now we have everything there. To be more precise, we have the box because we have box for collision, and there we have, if you see, we can move it a little bit, you will see that we have collision on the ground there and not with the objects there. So we have to change it, obviously. To do something like that, we have to add a PFlow collision shape. We say to use the geometry, activate, and then we have to add the collision. So mParticles collision after the mParticles word, and we can add this one because it has the PFlow collision shape. Let's say that the test is true if the particles are colliding. And in this case, if we go, you see that now we are colliding with the ground. So let's say that when we have the collision, we'll have a delete for the particles. So there, we can move this one there and connect. So all the particles that will collide with this mesh will be circled and will be deleted. So you see that the particles collide and are deleted. Nice. So now I like to have, first of all, let's go inside the option track update particle count, so we can see, you see the particles count between the various events to be sure we can follow what's happening inside the scene. So now I like to create some kind of explosion where a particle, a mParticles particle, will collide with the ground. So there I like to have a spawn event to create new particles. Let's go for spawn. Okay, nice. This spawn event will create some, let's say, for example, 3 offsprings, so 3 new particles. And those 3 new particles will have actually, let's say, not speed, because we are not taking care about the speed actually, and we have no divergence. The particles will be circle. So if we go, you see that actually we are not able to see anything because we need another event, and we can start with a let's say a display, and there we have again circle. So we have the particle falling down, and you see that we are creating circles in this part during the collision. Let's use a more visible color. Okay, you see that we are creating particles there. Okay, so the particles created needs to move with a speed. So we have to go there and choose speed, and this speed will have, you see the icon arrow. So if we go to select, you see that the particles are going down, so we have to reverse. So you see that the particles are falling down and then the particles are going away. We can say that the speed is, let's say, maybe 100%, so 1 meters, and there is maybe a variation of 35, and we'll have a little bit of divergence. So we have, for example, 20. In this case, we see the particles flowing down and then growing and going away. Nice. So now we have to create some trail with this particle. So to create the trail, we need again a spawn event. So let's go to select the spawn. We can put the spawn there. This time we have not the once, but we need the by travel, because we have to still create particles during the traveling. So let's see what happened in this case. You see that the particles falling down, and now it is starting to create particles. So there, let's say that we have point, and let's say that the distance is different. Let's try with 3, so we'll have less particles, and the speed maybe is annihilated by we have now to restart the particle age, and I like to have 50% of the starting speed with a variation maybe of 35%, and we have a little bit of divergence, let's say 10. So now if we go to see what happened, you see that it's falling down, and then we have these particles growing up. Nice. Okay, we have to delete these particles because they are still creating more particles. So we need a delete, and this delete will be maybe for let's say 10 frames, and the variation can be maybe just 2. Let's see if it is enough. Okay, it's too low, but we can also have a higher speed. Let's say maybe 300 with maybe 100 for the variation. Let's see. Okay. Okay. It seems nicer. We can have maybe just a little bit more with 100%, and the variation can be maybe 30, the divergence I mean. So let's see. Okay, we have particles and particles. Nice. Okay, let's see. So we have nice looking particles there, but you know we have also the spawning end. As particles are dying, but we can add a force, a drag force, to simulate dragging over the upper the particles growing up. So let's use a drag, and this drag is until the frame 300, and we can have a force, and the spawned particles will have a force and will have dots. The force will be the drag, and in the drag we can have an higher value. Let's try with maybe 30% over the z-axis. So let's see what happened. We have this one falling down, and you see that the particles are slower to growing up. Okay, you see that now the particle stays there, so we have still needs to delete it. To do it, we can copy this one with the right mouse button, copy, and paste there as distance. Okay, so we have the same connection between those particles and this event. So you see it is creating, and everything is going in the right way. Let's say to the particle system to show, okay, all particles, and that's nice. And for the dragging there, let's try to have a higher value for maybe 40%. Okay. Nice. And save. Now I'd like to add a second layer of particles, and to do this we can just add another spawn there. So we can select the same spawn as before, like this one. Let's make copy and then paste, because I like to set different value. Let's move. Sometimes it's complex to move this one. Okay, and this one will be a different setup. Let's say that maybe we have, let's say, 7 offsprings, 35% variation. We have, actually we have no restart again for the particle age, and we have, it's not a problem about the speed because we'll work on the speed. And we have a variation, a divergence of 90 degrees, and we have a variation of 50, but maybe later we'll control these particles in a different way. So then let's go to have a display, and we can connect those particles there. And there, let's set maybe a nicer color. Let's see what happened. We have the crash, and you see we have other particles going all around. Nice. Okay, we need to add a speed. and this time we set the speed, and this time it will be the height and center out. We can use a little bit less speed, let's say maybe 250, and the variation can be maybe 85, and we have maybe a divergence of 150. Let's see what happened. Okay, you see we have particles going all the way. Nice. We need again the same delete we used before, so copy and paste assistance. So we'll have those particles dying, but there we need to have the restart because we have a different timing. Okay, nice, perfect. We need to have a spawning, again a spawn by travel, and we can use maybe the same we used before. So let's make a copy and paste, and we can have maybe the same, maybe just a little bit less, let's say maybe 250, and then we have maybe a little bit less speed with the same variation but with more divergence. So let's see what happened. Okay, you see that we have these particles exploding in this way, and then we can have a connection in the same way. So we'll have the drag and the delete, and we have the dots for the display. It is calculating, so it takes a little bit. Now we can see the result. Okay. Let's check there, and I think we can have a bigger divergence. Let's try with 60. Let's see again. Okay, so we have a little bit more divergence there. Okay, nice. So the system is working nice. So you see that we have the explosion. We can decide to have less or more particles when needed, but let's save, and now we can start using the particle flow and then tweak the parameters if we need something else. So let's create the particle flow, and the FumeFX. Let's start with something like that. Okay, it will be just a little bit longer and just a little bit larger, and the sides of the scaling there is a little bit bigger, and then we can tweak it. Okay, so if we go to set some parameters, let's move the preview and let's go there. The first thing we have is that we can set the start to 0 and the end frame there, and we can remove from the simulation the fuel because I'm trying to simulate just smoke. And the first thing we can do is to create from the list. We go for a particle source, and then there we can select with the I have outliner. Directly there we can select PF impact. If you go to see there, now we have the circle. Okay, bigger circle to create the smoke. Okay, and it seems that we are going the right way, but we have a problem, and let's see which problem. Let's try to simulate some frames, and it's really fast because we are going to simulate with a really low quality. Okay, you see, the main issue is that we have the smoke also for the falling particles. So you see that we have the smoke and then the explosion, and that's not what I'm trying to achieve. So we have to find a different way to simulate this kind of stuff. The main issue is that FumeFX is not able to decide which particles can be used for the simulation and which particles are not used. There is a way inside particle flow. So let's select PF impact. And there, if you have afterburn, you can use the PFlow afterburn to choose which particles goes to FumeFX. But in the case you are just using particle flow, you are not able to access to the afterburn nodes. So I like to say that this event is not used and all the other events are used. To do something like that, we have a nice trick. And I mean, we can use the mesher. With the mesher, we are able to create mesh using those particles. So let's go in the compound object, mesher. And then there, we can pick the PF impact. But then we can decide which events we have to use. So we remove the use all PFlow events. Then we say add. And you know, the first event is not used, so we use just the number 2, 3, 4, 5. If we go to see what happened, you see that we are creating particles just using this event. Okay, something that can be done is to select the particles, PF impact. And let's see if we can scale a little bit the particles starting from there. So let's go for adding a scale, and we add it there. Okay, and let's say that this one is an overwrite. So let's say that we have 65%. Okay, you see the new particles are more little than the previous particles. And maybe it will be better for the effects we are trying to achieve. Okay, we have to move the mesher. So we can select this one and we can try to use directly the align. And we align this one to the PF impact. And you see that we are in the same position. Nice. So now we have the possibility to change, let's say, the setup inside FumeFX. So we set to not usable this one, and we add a new emitter, an object source. The object source will use the mesher. So in this case, if we go to simulate, you see that it's calculating, but we have nothing that will be created for the particles falling down. Let's wait for the impact. And you see that we have particles generating FumeFX just during the impact. And that's really, really nice. Okay, so in this way we have the nice control to create the particles when needed. The FumeFX when needed. I like to create a little bit of chaos there. Let's try to have just 1% for our smoke.